All right, all right. I just wanted to get on here today since it is almost the end of the month, August 29th. The last video I did on the market update, was on August 1st, I believe. And I do apologize, I haven't put it on my schedule to come in here and update you, but I do make that commitment to come in here and actually keep you updated, at least on what's going on our MLS. That's what you see here now. So, real quick, I'm just going to jump into the numbers. So, as we could see here, in the last 24 hours, we've had 99 new listings, 41 properties gone into escrow. So, accepted offers, 41 accepted offers, 99 have listed on the market, back on the market, so fell out of escrow, 9 in the last 24 hours. Price changes, we could dig more into that. Most right now, most price changes do have to do with dropping the price, but 43. So you can see that there. Expired listing 17. Uh, Homes that have actually sold 32 in the last 24 hours. So closed, sold 32 in the last 24 hours. Let's check into the last week and let's get an update on that. There we go. So in the last week, we've had 308 listings, brand new listings. We have 114 have gone into escrow. We've had 128 closed, sold properties, 41 expired, and then price changes 136 in the last week, and 44 homes had fell out of escrow in the last week. So those are the numbers that we have from here. And let me come in here and share some data here. So I was just looking at some numbers here. Actually, I'll just keep this because I've been actively working Desert Hot Springs, or at least I have buyers and sellers looking in Desert Hot Springs. So I was just looking at some of the numbers here. So when we look at Desert Hot Springs, just the zip code 92240. So that doesn't include Sky Valley or Indio Hills 92241. So 92240, those are hot springs. These are the numbers that we have single family homes, 2022 versus 2021. So if we look at new listings for 2022, 520 and versus 477. So we do have 9% more new listings coming into the market. Pending sales, that's something I keep seeing and we keep seeing on our charts, right? Looks like properties going into escrow don't change, or at least the numbers don't change too much. So the variance here is 1.5% higher or more pending sales. When it comes to closed sales, we are still above the mark, so 10.4% above in closed sales. So even though we are seeing more new listings, we are still seeing an increase in sales also. Average sales price has also jumped 43%. So average sales price of 395 versus 275 last year. So when we start looking at these numbers, just here's our pending sales. So anything in blue is from 2022. Let me do that again. 2022, and anything in gray is 2021. So when we look at how we're doing on homes that are going into escrow, we seem to be right around the same where we should be, right? So if you look at the graph, the cumulative total of pending sales, that doesn't change much. There was a jump here on April, but overall, steadily, we're still looking at the same amount of homes going into escrow. When we looked at closed sales, we see how we've been ahead from last year on closed sales for pretty much, I would say, about February, and going all the way up here where you see, where we peaked essentially April 2022. Actually, in May, I would say. It's about the same numbers, 2.50, 2.57. So we peaked there, and we have been seeing the number of closed sales go down just in the last few months. But even then, we're still just right around the same as last year when we look at July, right? And we are starting to see a trend of it going down, but we're at about, similar, the same amount of close. This is daily, the daily chart. So this shows you about how many homes are sold. I'm sorry, closed sold per day, and it's about 1.5 homes sold per day, right? That's essentially what it shows you. When we look at the cumulative chart, we see that we are still above, and that's the 10% we talked about. So we are ahead on closed sales still in Desert Hot Springs and new listings. So when we look at new listings, like I mentioned, yes, we do have more listings than last year. However, when we're looking at the daily chart, you can see how it fluctuates. And right now, in the last few days, it looks like we've kind of trended a little bit down. However, I mean, if we look at a lot of the rate increases we've seen were right around what, May, and this is kind of shows you, how inventory has been reacting. May, how sales have been reacting. So yes, there is a decline that we're looking uh, in sales really, but this is the daily graph. When we look at overall cumulative, we're still ahead. So this is what the numbers are showing, right? So it's not me, uh, you know, um, my opinion. It's just the numbers. So this is Desert Hot Springs. Let's look on the other side of the valley. Let's just say, and by the way, Desert Hot Springs is one of the more affordable, lower priced, um, average price here in the desert. Some of the more affordable communities like Coachella. So Desert Hot Springs and Coachella, you have one on the west side, one on the east side. Let's take a look at. I'm going to look at Indio only because Coachella has a smaller sample. So let's look at Indio and see what shows up for Indio. All right, so here we have Indio. When we look at Indio, the amount of new listings is pretty much the same. 1458 versus 1457 last year, right? So that hasn't changed. But in Indio, we have seen a change in homes going into escrow, as well as homes that are being sold or closed, right? So when we look at pending sales, we went from 1249 to what we see right now, which is 1156. So that's a decrease in homes in escrow of 7.4. Closed sales is 4.8, negative 4.8, right? So we went from 1237 to 1177. So you see the changes there. And then when we look at average sales price, that also still, is up. So 591 average sales price versus last year of 423. This is for single family home. When we look at the numbers from a cumulative versus daily, you can see how the graphs really show, that even though there is um, some change, and we're looking again 2022 blue, gray 2021, we see the change. It's small, but it's there, right? Enough to call it, under 7.4, 4.8, right? So we look at those graphs, and that's what we're seeing here. When we look at the daily, let's do the same thing as we did over here. So when it came down to May, that's when the interest rates, some of the interest rates went up, announcements, all that stuff. You have seen how that affected pending sales. You see a jump here in July, and then we're seeing the downtrend going there. When it comes to this here, this is closed sales. So we look at the same thing here. We were over last year's numbers, and we started seeing the trend down in around June. So we see the trend down all the way down to the difference that we see right now, right? And then lastly, new listings. Again, May, you see how we kind of peaked here in June, and then we're kind of similar, the same. So that's Indio, Desert Hot Springs. What is Palm Desert? One of our biggest samples shows us. Well, here we are, being one of the biggest or bigger samples usually. The reason we say that is just because we have a lot more um, uh, different kind of price points. In Palm Desert, you have gated communities, some of the older communities, some new construction, stuff like that. So when we look at these numbers, here we go, 17% down in Palm Desert from 1440 to 1192. New listings. When it comes down to pending sales, we have about 190, 192 less homes going into escrow. So that's down 16%. And then closed sales, we have, let's see, 1198 versus 1017. That's 15% down. However, look at the average price. We went from an average price of 686 to 1,012,090. That's a 47% increase, right? Which is crazy based on what we just saw in Desert Hot Springs and India, right? The numbers are up, but look at the difference when we talk about average sales price, right? So we'll look at this here, pending sales. We could see that as we went into May, that's when pending sales really tanked for for Palm Desert, and see that gap between 2022 and 2021. That's one of the bigger gaps we've seen from the compared to the other cities on the day-to-day chart. Um, when we look at I mean, at the end of the day, when we look at these, the trajectory is still going up, right? I mean, we still see that we're lagging from a year a year ago, but the trajectory is still, or at least the numbers are still pretty similar here. However, when we look at closed sales around May, we also see the same gap there trending down. And then lastly, new listings. So in May, we've seen how we saw a drop, and like the other cities in June, spike, and now we're seeing less properties, at least compared to last year, show up on the market, right? So that's what we have for today. Um, Actually, we'll do one more here. CRMLS. Let's see if we could do this here. I wanted to go in here real quick and let's see if I could do this. Oh, what I want to do is see. No, I'm not doing this right. I wanted to see if the showings have changed in the last few months, and see if I could pull that up real quick. And normally we could do that through Showing Time, the Showing Time app. We could see menu later. Let's look at home reports. I'm sorry. Let's look at reports. Let's see pricing benchmarks, market stats. Actually, we can pull it from here. So what I want to see is the showings. How are showings showing up? Where is it at? Oh, here it goes. Shows per listing. There you go. Sorry about that. There we go. So let's look at, what are we looking at? All sides. Let's just look at buyers. Individual buyers. And when we look at showings, we could see how the numbers have changed in the last, let's see, January of 2020 to January of 2022. So if we look at um, average showings entirely, um, showings per listings, the entire MLS, so we have 2.7 versus January of 2022. We have 8.2, 2021. So we could see where we've actually seen a jump in showings throughout the pandemic, really. However, we're starting to see how this is starting to trend down, right? So now, like, oh, okay, well, homes are staying on the market for a little bit longer. There's a little bit less showings. That is true that there is a little bit less showings. However, when we actually compare to 2019, probably, maybe I could go back. Actually, I could go back here. Well, that is 5 years. Let's see what's the max. Yeah, that's what it is. So, but I could probably say that pretty safely that in 2019 the averages were probably close to the 2.7, right? So somewhere around there. So we're going down on showings as far as what the numbers are showing us, showings per listing. However, still not bad at 4.6, right? So, anyways, this has been your market update for the desert. We should have the desert housing report coming out um, for August as we're finishing August. So typically, I would say within about a week and a half, we after we close the month, we will see the desert housing report put together from both boards, the Palm Springs Board of Realtors and the Desert California Association uh, of Realtors. So I will update you as soon as we have that. Other than that, my name is Ozzy Beltran, Osvaldo Beltran, Keller Williams Realty, La Quinta. My information is down here. You have an awesome day.